Hey free-to-play gang, welcome back to another video. So for some reason, a lot of you guys are requesting for a free-to-play Apep team. So this is exactly what a free-to-play Apep team looks like. However, I should say that this is extremely unrealistic. You're not going to be able to achieve this with just this team. And the only reason why I can do it is because I have a lot of very powerful relics. And I can guarantee you that Apep is so difficult that this team doesn't even make sense unless you're able to blow through it like I am. So realistically, you're not going to be able to probably do A10 without specific characters. And of course, I will show you something a little bit more realistic later on. And finally, I will end off with the third team, which is what I'm running with right now. But what I need to say is, honestly, just take your time. Just do all the K10 runs that you can do, if you can even do K10, okay? If you cannot even do K10, there is really no rush going to A10. So make sure you have like a whole bunch of really solid relics before moving on to Apep. So a lot of people think that, Apep is like the second tier of boss, so therefore you can probably partake in it in the early game. The answer is truthfully no. It really took me so long just to put together a team that can do Apep. And the reason why he is so difficult is because even all the free-to-play Espers, like even the fusible Gabrielle, she is not even that good for Apep. And the reason why she is not that good for Apep is because she multi-hits, and her immunity has way too long of a cooldown of 4 turns. And there are very few Espers in this game that can protect you from poisons. And yes, Changpu is an Esper that can grant you immunity. However, her AI is garbage. She is just a kindergarten student, and she don't know what the heck she's supposed to do. So as you can see over here, my team is already melting apart. So this team is definitely not going to work like 100% of the time. I think this is probably going to work like 90% at most. So I'm going to show you what a more realistic team looks like to handle Apep, and you're definitely going to have to draw from the gacha. And I know I missed everything, but I'm going to explain how Apep works, and then hopefully you guys would understand a little bit about the mechanics of Apep and why he is so tough to handle. Now, of course, I'm not saying that pure free-to-play players cannot do this. You definitely can. It's just how long would that take? Anyway, this is the most realistic way for you to do Apep with the least resources required, and that is to use Jacob. So I've talked about Jacob in the previous video on clearing the story content, and while he's really good against Sig, in the same vein, he's also going to be really good against Apep, who does a lot of poisons. So all I did here is just to remove Liling away and remove Chalmers and replace the leader spot with Jacob. So right now, we are exchanging attack power for a little bit more HP. And if you need a proper deep dive on Jacob, you can check out the link at the top, and that will give you all the information that you will need. Also, do take note that we are using Gabrielle here, who is a fusible legendary, so there may be this kind of requirements for you. Okay, and the thing is, Gabrielle is not even that good in my opinion, or at least not very good for this content, because her immunity only lasts for 2 turns, and her cooldown is 4 turns. And to add salt to the wound, her second skill triple hits, and you do not want to multi-hit the boss. So she's not exactly a very good pick here in my opinion. However, the reason why Gabrielle is sufficient here is because we have Changpu, we have Jacob, and we also have Gabrielle. So all in all, we have 3 different kinds of like poison immunity, so to speak. And Gabrielle is going to be able to upkeep the defense buffs for us as well. So she can be slightly reliable, but honestly not all that good. Anyway, before we get into the Apep fight, if you find that you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing, as subscribing is free and you can always change your mind afterwards. And also, that's all I ask from you for making content. Alright, so let's check out Apep's skills, right? Let's take a look at his first skill. First, Miasma attacks all enemies and inflicts 2 poison debuffs for 2 turns. So his normal attack is kind of dangerous in the sense that it lands poison debuffs, and you'll understand in a little bit. So we're going to check his passive first, okay, his third skill. So this is Chaos Surging. Receiving damage inflicts a poison debuff on the attacker, lasting 3 turns. Triggers toxic detonation on targets immediately when receiving a number of attacks. And you might be asking, what the heck is toxic detonation? So that's the second skill. Attacks all enemies and detonates all poison debuffs, dealing more damage based on the number of debuffs affecting the target. So basically, you do not want to have debuffs on your team. And what debuffs are there on Apep? Definitely poisons. So as you can see here, whenever you attack Apep, you actually get poisoned, which is kind of like he's a Jacob himself. So you want to have a lot of immunity all the time. You want to have a lot of poison resistance, so you're not going to get affected by all the poisons from his passive over here and his first skill. And also we can check out the helpers that he has. So the first one is going to be the Suppression Tablet. Attacks all enemies and has a chance to stun the targets affected by poison. More reason why you do not want to be poisoned. And Blessing Tablet launches an attack on a single enemy and dispels all buffs. And every buff dispelled is converted into a poison debuff, which lasts for 3 turns. So the thing is, even if you have immunity, there is a potential for you to be stripped and poisoned. Okay, so now that we know how Apep works, take note that Apep has 7 counters on A10. So after landing 7 hits, he is going to use his second skill, which is a counter attack. So now we don't want counter attack, and that's the reason why we are not using Liling here anymore. Because Liling loves to throw punches, and we are not going to deal with that today. So our objective is to go slow and steady and win the race. Now, do take note that this is going to be a rather long run, and I would expect the same of a lot of you guys, because there's simply just no corner cutting over here. There are not many Espers who can single target hit or who are exceedingly effective against him. And I mean, you can use Freddy, you can build a Freddy, but I think having just 1 DPS and that being Drew is good enough, because you can use Drew for K10. So anyway, what you can see here is that we're not receiving any poisons, and that's because our upkeep of our immunity is very strong. So objectively, this is what you might want to go for. And this means that if you do not have a Jacob, you can always go for Fabrice, who is also a fusible Esper, because he has immunity as well, very similar to Gabriel. So some word of caution for you guys: if you happen to be inflicted with poisons and you get overrun with poisons, that could spell disaster for you, because it is very hard for you to remove the poisons. But there will be some ways like using Hengrie or some other cleansers like Celine, Sally and Clara. But as you can see, these are also gacha options. So I think maybe the most free to play way is to just replace Jacob with a Fabrice here, and I think that is basically it. And another thing that can help you is to bring attack debuffer. So for example, over here we have both Gabriel and Suhua who can land attack breaks on Apep. And since he has no means of cleansing himself, landing attack debuffs can be a very easy way for you to control his output and possibly even tank through his attacks. Anyway, that would be for like the early mid-game section. This is the end game section. This is the team they're running with, and as you can see, I am still using Jacob. And I mean, of course, I'm using Suhua as well, and as you can see, I'm using single target hitters like Drew and Lin Xiao. And the reason why I'm using Chloe over here is because she helps to clear the early waves a little bit faster, and therefore my runs can be a little bit faster. And of course, what you realize is I am no longer using healers, and the reason why I can do without a healer is take a look at my Espers over here. What do you notice? They all have a shield buff on them. Now the shield buffs come from 2 of my Espers, Suhua and Drew, and that's because they are equipped with the Adamantine set. And yes, they stack, which is also a set that you can farm from Apep. So the thing is, the more you farm Apep, the easier it's going to be, because you're going to be able to swap out some of your more useless K10 relics for useful Apep relics. And of course, I'm only referring to the Mui slots. And the reason why K10 Mui relics are not that good is because they generally just give stat. However, for Apep, what you notice is the drops consist of Avatara and Adamantine, which are very meta because one allows you to counter attack and the other grants you a shield. And of course, you can also find the fiery relics over here, which increases your crit rate. So generally, you must move on from K10 into Apep. You cannot just simply stay at K10 forever. You're not going to be able to clear some content in the future that way. So Apep is still on the horizon for you, except that it's just significantly harder, and I don't recommend you to go into it unless you can defeat it by having certain Espers. So that will be it for this video. I hope you found it informative. I hope you guys understand why Apep is not exactly that easy to clear, and why I can't really justify having a free-to-play comp in order to handle Apep. You don't want to be spending 40 minutes just to clear a single multi-run. But if you do have any questions or queries, feel free to leave it down in the comment section below, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Now with that said, this has been free-to-play by the way, and as always, I will see you in the next video.